Before we break down the updated NFL playoff picture entering Week 17, we will be live, not just for every NFL playoff game, but for every college football playoff game as well. Tune in, have some fun, hit that sub button right now. Let's look at the current NFC playoff picture, then AFC, then more in depth on all the teams still alive here. Lions, Eagles, Vikings, Packers have all clinched a playoff spot. None of them have technically clinched a division yet. That could and probably will change this week. Commanders, Bucks, Seahawks, Rams, Falcons, all fighting for two spots among those five teams. In the AFC playoff picture, Chiefs, Bills, Texans have all clinched their divisions. Steelers, Ravens have clinched playoff spots as well. Seeding very much up for grabs. There are still five teams fighting for two spots. However, there is the possibility the entire AFC, the 7 teams, are figured out as soon as this weekend. All right, let's go more in depth on the NFC since they played on Monday Night Football. The Packers lock up their playoff spot with a win. Lions got some good news with the Eagles' surprising loss against the Commanders. Now, they have already clinched the number 5 seed. The only reason they haven't clinched anything more is because the Vikings are also playing great football and are still alive for the division. The Lions clinched the number 1 seed with a win over the 49ers and if the Vikings lose against the Green Bay Packers. That Eagles loss went a pretty big way to help out Detroit and potentially Minnesota as well, which maybe ends up being decided in Week 18, but we'll see what happens this weekend. The Eagles, they had the surprising loss against the Washington Commanders. They have the Cowboys this week, the Giants in Week 18. They have already clinched the number 7 seed. Now, they can clinch the 6th seed for, wild card purposes if the Packers lose, but that is not what Philadelphia wants to get. I think we all know that they have their eyes set on getting more than that. They are still just one game away from clinching the number 2 seed and the NFC East in the process, while still being alive for the number 1 seed. If they win against the Commanders, or against the Cowboys, or the Commanders lose against the Falcons, Eagles lock up at least that number 2 seed. The Eagles, Vikings, and Lions are all still alive for the number 1 seed in the NFC. It's most likely the Lions. They've got tiebreakers and whatnot. Eagles are still more technically alive. They need some help here. Who gets the number 1 seed in the NFC? Let me know in the comments section, the pinned comment of today's show. Go vote if the ad comes here on YouTube. The LA Rams hasn't always been pretty the past 2 weeks, but they keep taking care of business. Week 16 win over the Jets. Week 17 they have the Arizona Cardinals. Week 18 they have the Seattle Seahawks. Again, all the Sunday times are TBD, by the way. Their playoff probability right now is 86%. And something I have never seen before, the Rams with ties have 228 clinching scenarios. There's a ton of tiebreakers and strength of schedule stuff and components. It's all kinds of chaos out there. The simplest scenario to clinch a playoff spot is this. They win the NFC West. If they win, and the Seahawks lose to the Bears. Now, there are other scenarios. I'm not going to list all. It's nearly 30 that exist otherwise. It's stuff like Rams win, Falcons lose, Packers lose, Lions lose, Broncos lose, Rams lose, Falcons lose, Packers lose. In fact, it's all required for the most part of the Falcons losing to the Commanders pretty much. Then Lions and Broncos and Dolphins and Jets and different combinations of all those teams coming up short. And you get the right combination of strength of schedule. In fact, there are scenarios in which they lock up the number 3 seed if the Falcons and Seahawks and Bucks all end up losing games. It's complicated as all get out. Just win, and the Rams control their destiny. They have magic numbers, too, and they play Seattle in Week 18, by the way. The Falcons, thanks to the Bucks loss, spend some more time on that here, and their blowout win of the Giants. Gains against the Commanders, who they're going to be underdogs against on Sunday Night Football. And the Panthers, they got a 50+% chance of making the postseason. Now, they can clinch the number 4 seed this week. If they win and the Bucks lose against Carolina, the Falcons lock up a playoff spot. They control their own destiny, but a tough game coming against the Commanders. The Minnesota Vikings have played some fantastic football this year. They gutted out a critical win over the Seattle Seahawks. Their schedule's tough down the stretch here. The Packers in Week 17 and the Lions in Week 18. They have to win to keep their number one seeds' dreams alive. They have clinched at least the number 6 seed already, and they would lock up the number 5 seed, thanks to tiebreakers, with a win over the Green Bay Packers this weekend. Speaking of the Packers, they locked up a playoff spot with a was that really a football game? You guys see the NFL account tweeted out final at halftime on accident, by the way? They weren't wrong. The game was over. 34-0 win in a blowout win over the Saints. Vikings and Bears, again, they have clinched the number 7 seed already. They would lock up at least the number 6 seed with a win over the Vikings and a Commanders loss against the Atlanta Falcons. They have just a game lead over Atlanta or the Commanders. There's some tiebreaker stuff there. So they do want to have that extra outcome. Otherwise, it gets into weird tiebreaker stuff. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It's the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Make the holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks. This holiday, they're giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. You can do all kinds of pro football. You can do college football. There's plenty of available options for you. One of their freebies they're giving away in December is their St. Nick free pick for Nikola Jokic, a half point. That's on Christmas Day, by the way. I know a lot of you guys are going to watch this video later on in the week because that's what the numbers show us. So just the Sunday night and even to Monday football Prize Pick slate for me. Rico Dowdle, more than 63.5 yards on the ground. Jared Goff, 265.5 passing yards. Hunter Henry, 42.5 receiving yards as well. Download the Prize Picks app. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's CLNS over at prizepicks.com. Get that 50 or .com/CLNS. You get that $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. To the Commanders we go. Gutty win over the Philadelphia Eagles. They got the Falcons in prime time on Sunday Night Football. Week 18 against the Dallas Cowboys. Their playoff probability is at 94%. All they have to do is get a win against the Falcons, or the Bucs lose to the Panthers. Now, if the Bucs win, the Falcons win, it gets a little bit more dicey, but you just got to win one of your next 2 games or not lose a bunch of tiebreakers. So they're in a pretty good spot there. In fact, they can actually clinch the 6th seed too, with a win over the Falcons and a Packers loss against the Vikings, thanks to tiebreaker stuff. So it is possible that they could build that tiebreaker lead over the Commanders, or the Bucs. But again, it's Packers, but it's not guaranteed. Let's move to the Bucs here. That was a surprise. They blew that game against the Cowboys. They kind of looked surprised Dallas was competing with their season over already. Panthers Saints though, and if the Falcons don't beat the Commanders, Tampa's right back in the mix. But tiebreakers favor the Falcons. That should not be overlooked. Seattle is still technically alive in the NFC playoff picture, but they need help, and they're not going to win many of the tiebreakers. Their path is that the Rams get upset this week. Seattle takes care of business against the Bears on Thursday Night Football, and they beat the Rams in Week 18. That helps them out significantly, but that loss against Minnesota really hurt them. Bucs went from an 80% chance, 88% chance, like to 52 this week, by the way. Those are the only teams still alive in the playoff picture. Cowboys, Cardinals, Niners, Saints were all eliminated from the NFL playoff picture, with many of those happening before their games went on, by the way. Cowboys, Niners, and Saints were all out before their games got started. All right, AFC playoff picture here. Again, Chiefs, Bills, Texans all clinched their divisions. Seattle, or the Steelers and Ravens battling for the number 3 or 4 seed and the AFC North. The Chiefs have already clinched the AFC West and at least the number 2 seed with their win over the Houston Texans. Now, they play the Steelers on Christmas Day and the Broncos on the road in Week 18. The Chiefs can clinch that number 1 seed with a win over the Steelers or a Bills loss against the Jets. If the Chiefs don't beat Pittsburgh, then there is still possibility of the Bills catching up with that 2-game deficit because they have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So the Bills are not out of it yet, but the Chiefs have all the control at this point. So will the Chiefs lock up the number 1 seed? Why for yes and for no? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Was it pretty, but the Bills did get a win over the Patriots. They then wrap up with the Jets and the Patriots again in Week 18. Fantasy owners everywhere praying the Bills have stuff to play for. They have already locked up the number 3 seed. And what's going to happen this week is there is a very real possibility of the Bills knowing that they're in the 2 seed going into Week 18 or knowing they're alive for the 1 seed. If they beat the Jets, they lock up at least the 2 seed. Or if the Steelers lose and Ravens lose, they also lock up that number 2 seed. So as you'll see in the AFC, there are scenarios that exist in which everything is kind of locked up, or almost everything is locked up going into Week 18. The Steelers, now they have clinched at least the 7 seed with their current record. They put the Chiefs on Christmas Day and a Bengals team that may or may not still be alive. Now, their clinching scenarios are unique. They cannot secure the division this week, by the way. They don't have – there's too much still to be determined with division games and whatnot to go on in Week 18. But they get the 6th seed with a Denver loss to the Bengals or a Chargers loss to New England. The 5 seed if the Broncos lose and the Chargers lose. And they also lock up the 5 seed simply by beating the Kansas City Chiefs. The Texans lost against the Chiefs on Saturday. Now they go play the Ravens on Christmas Day, as Netflix got some good games, by the way. A lot riding on those. Please don't be like the Jake Paul fight and Tyson fight where it cuts out and everyone loses their minds. They have clinched at least the 4 seed and the AFC South. No clinching scenarios for Houston. Let's get to the wild card picture here, where the Ravens right now don't have the tiebreaker over Pittsburgh, but again, that can change with division games to go. They got the Texans on Christmas. They have the Browns that are out of it, not playing for anything in Week 18. Again, they have clinched at least the 7 seed, and what's crazy, kind of funny how this works out, they have the exact same clinching scenarios as the Pittsburgh Steelers. 6 seed with a Denver loss or a Chargers loss. 5 seed if both Denver and the Chargers lose. Or they simply beat the Houston Texans. Ravens, Steelers, still, how have we said this? Alive for the AFC North. Who wins the AFC North this year? R for the Ravens, S for the Steelers. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Over now to the LA Chargers, as they are in prime position here. They beat the Broncos on Thursday Night Football. They've got the Patriots and the Raiders, 2 of the worst teams in football, to wrap up their games. They clinch a playoff spot with a win versus the Patriots, or Dolphins and Colts lose. Now, again, tiebreakers don't favor them as much on that front. It does favor them with the head-to-head win over the Bengals, though. They can clinch the 6th seed if they win against the Patriots and the Broncos lose against the Bengals. That it would guarantee them the number 6 seed, but they have the advantage for now. Denver, 2 games to go, have a 2-game lead in the final wildcard race. Loss against the Chargers. What is going to be interesting for Denver is the Bengals are fighting for their slim playoff lives, and will the Chiefs have anything to play for in Week 18? We simply don't know yet. The Broncos clinch a playoff spot simply by beating the Bengals, and if that happens, barring a Chargers collapse here, that would secure the 7 seeds in the AFC. The Colts, Dolphins, and Bengals are all mathematically still alive at this time. The elimination options for Indy, by the way, is if they lose. Denver, Chargers both win. Indy is out. Miami is in a rather similar boat. They lose, they are out. Broncos, Chargers are both out of it. Bengals are very simply win or you are eliminated. They are technically alive. We'll see if they're able to keep those hopes and dreams alive as we move into the penultimate week of the NFL season.